What's up, you amazing people? I hope you're having a fantastic day. You are, of course, watching and listening to the Daily Dirty 30, also known as the DDT, here on The Kevin Lee Show. And I am your host, Kevin Lee. Now, for those of you who do not know what the DDT is all about, let me take a moment to explain. You see, it's a show that airs live at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. And it's where I get to spend 30 minutes telling you, the viewer, all about the things that bother me today. What do I get out of it? It's easy. It's therapeutic. Why should you tune in? That's even easier. It's entertaining. Sound like a fair trade? Good. Let's get to it. Hello, friends. I hope everybody is having a happy Friday and has a fantastic week. That is, at least if you are watching this or seeing this on Friday. And if you happen to be watching this or listening to this at any other point in time, I hope you're having a fantastic day too. I'm sorry, I'm a wee bit distracted today because I don't know if you can hear. I'll be quiet for a second. Can you hear that? Crickets. Apparently I have crickets. Just like right on the other side of this wall. And that's going to be distracting. I tell you what. Anyways, again, like I said, I hope everyone is having a great day. And that you had a wonderful week. I mean, we're at Friday now. This is the 5th day of the week. Sort of, I guess. I mean, there's 7 days in a week, but it's the end of the week. And then goes into weekends. I don't know. It's always confused me ever since I was a child. But yeah, apparently today is like the weekend or beginning of the weekend. I don't know, something. I hope you're enjoying yourself. That's all I know. That being said, we're going to talk about probably a little bit less of an enjoyable topic, but I believe it's important. We are going to be discussing Kamala Harris and abortion. So if that isn't an upbeat topic, I don't know what is. But no, in all seriousness, it is important that we do talk about this because Kamala Harris was just named the VP, and as anyone with half a brain can realize, there's a very good chance she'll be president within 6 months after election if indeed their ticket wins. So it's important that we study what Kamala Harris believes, especially on the main topics like guns and drugs and abortion. And abortion's a big one, especially for her. Now, apparently, there was a lot of non-committal in her earlier days of running for office. Especially when she was an attorney general, I guess. I guess when she ran for Senate, it kind of came out more to the forefront that she is very much for abortion, which is understandable. Again, she's a Democrat. Democrats support abortion, or at the very least, pro-choice. So that you're never going to see an anti-abortion Democrat, even if they are, even if in their heart of hearts and in their minds they are anti-abortion, they would never say it. They would simply say something like, I'm pro-choice. And that was it. And they would never say another word. But she has gone far beyond, not only in words, but in actions, stating the fact very clearly that she is pro-abortion. And we'll get to that all in a minute. So in all due time. But I just want to do a couple quick reminders because it is Friday and I'm not going to see you guys or you guys aren't going to hear me again until Monday. So I just wanted to remind everyone that you can always come out and check all our stuff on the website, which is thekevinleeshow.com. That's thekevinleeshow.com. And on there, you're going to find links for everything. Everything from anywhere you can watch us on every single platform you can imagine. And if there's more that we're not on, let me know and I can add it. As well as links to all the podcasts, anything and everything you want. So there you go. But yeah, I always like to mention that on Mondays and Fridays because that way, it's kind of a little reminder. Not going to bombard you with that crap every day of the week, but, a couple of days a week. Tell you what. All right, so let's get right into it, though. Let's not waste any more time. Again, we only have 30 minutes for the show. 30 minutes, I tell you. But okay, I guess I should remind you who I am. My name is Kevin, and indeed, you are watching, the Daily Dirty 30, which, of course, airs Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Okay, there you go. Now, as far as our discussion today, it's going to be a little interesting. If I don't say so myself. And the reason for it being is this. So I'm going to basically reference 2 articles that were popular articles on this topic. One is by the Daily Wire and one's by the National Review. One is by the Daily Wire, is entitled, Kamala Harris Defends Abortion Up to Birth. A Woman Should Make That Decision. Now, I know that sounds very extreme. And they probably used that title just for as a grabber, as a catch-ya. But it's not really the truth. She does believe, or she does defend the right for a woman to choose to make the decision to have abortion all the way up to including birth. Yeah. Yeah, I was a little surprised too when I found that out. I knew she was pro-abortion, even more so than being pro-choice, but didn't know she was that pro-abortion. Actually, no, let's just get right to it. Again, we don't have much time. So this is the article, and I'm just going to show you some snippets. So this is one of the snippets in the article. It says a California Democrat, which of course we're speaking of Kamala Harris, said in an interview on Wednesday that she believes a woman has a right to choose abortion all the way up to the baby's birth. Her comments stand in line with the entire Democratic Party platform, which reared its ugly head this week when Senate Democrats successfully blocked the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And if that isn't a mouthful, I don't know what is. I don't know why they always do this. But whenever people make these bills and try to, write these acts, so they just give them the most ridiculous names. Sometimes they do it because they want to have an anagram or whatever, where you have the things. But this is a really not silly name. It's an accurate name, but it's just, they could have named it something better. But it is called the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. And I'm just going to give you a quick snippet real quick. This is the bill. It's actually the Senate bill. It's whenever you see a bill and it says S in front or H in front, S is for Senate, H is for House. And I'll give you the number. This is 311. This is current Congress, the 116th Congress. In fact, this bill was placed on the calendar Senate on February 4th, 2019. Again, this is Senate Bill 311. And on here, I'll show you who the sponsors were and the co-sponsors. And it'll give you a quick synopsis of the bill. This is to amend Title 18 United States Code to prohibit a healthcare practitioner from failing to exercise a proper degree of care in the case of a child who survives an abortion or attempted abortion. So basically just saying if a baby survives an abortion, you got to try to save it. That's basically all it said. But Kamala Harris was one of the people who were running in the charge to make sure this bill was defeated. Why? Because they believe if you give anyone an inch, they'll take a mile, and they don't believe that there should be any rights against someone having an abortion. They should be up to the woman, period. And again, I don't know what your opinion on that is, but this is the standard reply from most Democrats. But she was literally leading the charge on attacking this one bill. But it is important. That's why I did bring it up. So then we're now going to hop over to this image here. So this is another quote from the article, but this is a quote of what she said. She said, "I think it's up to a woman to make that decision, and I will always stand by that. I think she needs to make the decision with her doctor, with her priest, with her spouse. I would leave that decision up to them." And again, that's a pretty standard answer. It should be up to the woman, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I'm not necessarily attacking her for saying this. That's not why I put it up on the screen. I put it up on the screen because I want you to understand that these are the things that she's saying, right? I'm not even attacking her for having this stance necessarily, but I want you to understand where she's coming from, what it is she thinks. And I can't tell you why she thinks that, but I'll lay out the facts of what she actually says. And hopefully, hopefully that will help you better understand her mindset, at least as best as one can outside of herself. We're also now going to jump over to here. So, oops, where am I at? I lost my spice. Okay, so so after that last quote where I just showed you, where it talked about, I think it's up to a woman to make that decision. I will always stand by that. I think she needs to make the decision with her doctor, with her priest, with her spouse. I would leave that decision up to them. Right after that, it says, according to Life News, Harris not only helped kill the anti-infanticide bill on Monday, but also helped sponsor a pro-abortion bill legalizing all abortions up to birth for whatever reason. And by what that means is literally there was a pro-abortion bill they're trying to get passed. So the idea behind this bill, this pro-abortion bill, called the Women's Health Protection Act, which was originally introduced to Congress in 2017 and had over a dozen Democratic supporters, including Harris and other presidential candidates. Actually, I think I have okay, here, I got it right here. I'll just bring it up so you can see it. Okay. So it says the so-called Women's Protection Act was introduced in Congress in 2017 with dozens of Democrat sponsors, including Harris and presidential candidates Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, Kristen Gillibrand. Is it Gillibrand? Gillibrand, right? Gillibrand, I don't know. Gillibrand, not sure. And Bernie Sanders. Yeah, so that is an interesting one. And right here it goes, follows after. It says, nicknamed the Abortion Without Limits Until Birth Act by pro-life groups. The bill would have invalidated nearly all state and federal abortion regulations, including waiting periods, informed consent requirements, bans on late-term abortions, and same-selection abortions and more. Or I'm sorry, sex selection abortions and more. I misread that. I apologize. Basically, what this is saying, that this was a pro-abortion bill that literally would take away any rights from any state of making any law that would prohibit anyone, or essentially putting on any regulations at all. Because again, they want abortion to be open and as free as possible. Now, I don't know what your personal view is on abortion. I only have mine. Personally, I do not believe abortion is a good thing. I understand that it has to happen in certain instances. So as someone who actually worked in a hospital, worked in surgery, and had to be present during certain abortions, I understand that there are medical reasons for abortions. And it's even that's a kind of a catch-22, because even though they're technically pregnancies, they're not real pregnancies. And by that, what I mean is they're not viable pregnancies. So we're talking like an ectopic pregnancy, which basically means that the egg was fertilized, but instead of traveling all the way down to the uterus before implanting, it'll implant, say, in the fallopian tube somewhere. And obviously, a baby cannot grow in a fallopian tube, and therefore, the baby will never become a baby. It'll never grow big enough, and by the time it starts to grow big enough, it'll literally rupture the fallopian tube and cause internal bleeding, killing the mother. Many times when a woman experiences an ectopic pregnancy, they don't even realize they're pregnant. All of a sudden, they'll have horrible pain. They'll think there's something else going on. They'll go to the emergency room and they'll figure out what it is, and then they'll have to remove it. Oftentimes, they'll have to remove the fallopian tube with it, because by that point, it's already done too much damage to the fallopian tube. It's a terrible experience, a terrible thing in life. I mean, there's a lot of terrible things that happen in life, but this is definitely one of them, especially if you're a woman trying to get pregnant and this happens. Terrible thing. Obviously, this is technically an abortion. This is actually called and recorded as an abortion by hospitals. Another time that you might see the term abortion used is it's actually referred to as a D&C. It's a dilation and curettage, and sometimes they are flat out abortions. But oftentimes, at least in the hospital setting, more times than not, whenever they do a D&C, they're doing it because a woman had a miscarriage, and the baby might be delivered under natural means, but oftentimes it doesn't work out that way. And to be safe, they do what's called a D&C to remove it, and they basically dilate and scrape everything out so that there are no problems. So they can remove the placenta that's forming and everything else, and it's just safer for everyone involved. And these are actually abortions. And I believe those are obvious, situations when abortion should be legal. Now, of course, there's a gray area. There's a lot of debate to be had or conversations to be had about, rape and incest. I mean, I don't think it's that much of a conversation to be had personally. But again, I'm a man, so whatever, but take it for what you want. But I do believe that, everyone says like, well, what if a woman is raped? Okay. That's a terrible thing. And I hope the man, has everything that can be legally done to him. But what about the baby? Is it the baby's fault? Did they do anything wrong? No. But again, I'm not saying those should be illegal, not at all. But I'm just saying, from my own personal stance, I don't think the abortion conversation is much of a conversation to be had. Especially now when you start talking about things like this, where you start talking about, have the feds step in. I mean, because basically, it should be up to the states, generally speaking. Now, again, if abortion is legal on a national level, I guess no states could necessarily make it illegal to have an abortion, but they should be able to put regulations. Like, this is one of the most ridiculous things I've heard lately. And I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation. There are a number of states who put on stipulations that a doctor cannot perform abortions unless they have privileges at a local hospital. Okay, that's not a bad thing. In fact, it's required for every other single procedure done in a surgery center outside of a hospital setting and everything. Like if you're a plastic surgeon, you have to have privileges to work out of a local hospital in case there's complications and the patient has to be transferred to the hospital for a more professional surgical setting. Now, again, the doctor may not even work on them there, but they have to have the option to be able to. That's the way it is for plastic surgery. For anything, nose jobs, boob jobs, People who get stuff done at, like I said, at a surgery center where they do surgical procedures. Sometimes they even do things like orthopedic, ACLs, shoulder surgeries, replacements. I don't know why they would ever do that outside of a hospital, but some places they do. And those doctors in all those settings, as far as I know, I've never heard of a hospital or an area or a state that didn't require those doctors to have privileges as well as local hospitals. So they put that same stipulation on for abortion doctors, and people throw a fit. And I understand why they're throwing a fit, because they think it's some deep down dark ploy to try to make it more difficult for women to have abortions. No, they just want to make sure that the doctor is qualified to be performing these in the first place, because for them to have privileges at local hospitals, they actually have to have certain qualifications. They don't have to have certain qualifications. They don't have to meet a very thin minimum requirement to be able to perform these in their own clinics. To be able to have privileges at a hospital, you actually have to take extra steps and have extra training. Things like that. Because God forbid that, a woman would want her doctor to be trained and prepared in treating her. Anyways, moving forward, we're kind of getting off topic here. But I just wanted to kind of put that out there, because I'm sure that's going to come up. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, well, what do you think? Well, there you go. That's what I think. Again, I'm not saying it should be illegal. And right now it is legal. So we need to treat it as it is. So there you go. I got off topic. I got to figure out where the heck I was. Okay, so now we're gonna actually hop over to another area, a whole nother area. We're an entire another article. This one's a National Review article, and again, it's talking about Kamala Harris's abortion opinion. And alrighty, let's see if I actually have. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump to the articles, or the snippets I have out of it, because again, I want to get too far off topic. We only have, blow this up bigger. Okay, so I'm going to read this to you. It says, as a senator, Harris has co-sponsored the most aggressively pro-abortion piece of federal legislation ever introduced, the Women's Health Protection Act. Again, we just kind of discussed that, which would override state restrictions on abortions in the last 3 months of pregnancy. Because as you may or may not know, essentially every state has abortions outlawed after the second trimester. Some states even after the first trimester, but most states do have the last 3 months. Even then, because in the last 3 months, if worst comes to worst, you just deliver the baby and see if you can save it. You don't abort it, right? You just remove it and hope for the best, and do what you can to see if you can save the baby. And if not, then you can't. But you at least try. Because most people wouldn't wait 6 months or 7 months to have an abortion. That's not typically how it's done. Typically most women, they find out they're pregnant and go, oh shit, I don't want to be pregnant, and they go have an abortion. It's pretty much the way it goes, or at least that's the way it should be going. So the Women's Health Protection Act, which would override state restrictions on abortions in the last 3 months of pregnancy, well after fetal viability. And again, another thing, I don't know if you're aware of this. You should really check it out. We've made great advancements in medicine, and now it's not quite commonplace, but it's not uncommon in any way, shape, or form to be able to save a 20-week-old child. Think about that. 20 weeks old. The thing is tiny. It's formed. It's basically fully formed. It just has a ton of growing to do. And that's why it's got 20 more weeks in the womb, give or take. But at 20, 21, 22 weeks, there have actually been hundreds of babies around the world saved. You should look into that. It's amazing what science has done. The advancements, amazing. So the bill would invalidate any state law that prohibits abortion after fetal viability when, in the good faith medical judgment of the treating physician, continuation of the pregnancy would pose a risk to the pregnant woman's life or health. And the thing is about that, they slipped in some interesting verbiage. So it doesn't just refer to physical health, but mental health, financial health. Yes, that's really a thing in this bill. They're basically saying, well, if you've decided, well, I've done my math, and if I thought about this more, 4 or 5 months ago, I would have aborted the baby because it's just going to cost me too much money. But I've kind of realized it now, or maybe I lost my job now. So in the stress of even being pregnant, let alone having to deal with a newborn child and not much money coming in, I'm just not going to be able to do this. So I want an abortion. That's literally what this bill will allow a woman to do. To me, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. And again, I would love to have a lengthy, long debate about abortion and being pro-life, or, taking care of a child after it's born, or, those type of things. And maybe one day we will. We'll have people on. We'll talk about it. But again, this is a half an hour show. I don't have time to talk about it. And again, this is about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. Man, maybe I even said it right. I don't even know anymore. My head's spinning when it comes to this name. I'm just going to call her Ms. Harris. Ms. Harris, right? Yeah, probably right. Yeah, okay. So Ms. Harris, or Senator Harris. Let's say Senator Harris. That works for me. So she not only supported the bill, she was one of the co-authors, I believe, of this bill. Just mind-boggling, really. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide here. It'll say the legislation would also make it impossible for states to enact or enforce informed consent laws and waiting period requirements, which have often been upheld by courts as permissible under our current abortion jurisprudence. So much for federalism. So what this is saying is that this legislation would make it impossible for states to enact or enforce informed consent laws, meaning that if it was a child under a certain age, it'd have to, their parents would have to be notified, or even, I think there's a state where I don't even know if you have to require to tell the person who impregnated you. I don't know, but there's laws that are on the books in certain states that have been upheld in appellate courts when people have been trying to stop them. Waiting periods as well. Some places will make you wait 24 hours if you come to the door, so you're not just making a rash decision. They'll want you to go over some literature and meet with a counselor, and make sure you have other options. And again, if something you are absolute certain you want to do, then fine, come back tomorrow or come back next week and we'll do it. It's not saying that they won't do it. It's just saying they want you to, take a time out and think about this, because this is a huge decision. I mean, there are many women out there, and there are some women who are very glad that they ended a pregnancy, no doubt. But that number is very small compared to the number of women out there who are not only haunted by, but some are tortured by the decisions they made 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. It's true. I know many of them. And they break down and cry about it all the time now. I'm talking literally decades down the road. They break down all the time. So it's not something you want to rush into. And this is why they have those type of stipulations in place, so that won't happen. Yeah, and again, some people will think too that this bill hasn't passed; it was stopped, right? And for good reason, because some things in this bill are, I don't want to say it's nuts, but it's pretty crazy. Some of the things that they put in here, the verbiage, the allowances, and everyone's like, well, that's just too far. I mean, even some Democrats going, no, that's just absolutely too far. And a lot of people will be like, well, it didn't pass. It's fine. We're good. It's not ever going to pass. Well, do you really believe that? I mean, Biden throughout his career has grown more pro-abortion, going from almost anti-abortion to pro-choice to pro-abortion. And obviously, Kamala Harris appears to be rather pro-abortion. And if they win the election, and obviously it looks like, I have no doubt they'll probably hold into the House. I don't see them losing the House. But they could even win the Senate. And if they control all three branches, they'll be unstoppable to pass legislation like this. I mean, maybe a state or an organization can sue, and maybe it can get to the Supreme Court. Maybe the Supreme Court might uphold it, or might strike it down, basically saying that's unconstitutional. You never know. Hopefully, because that's why we have safety nets in place like that. That's why we have all the different, that's why we have the Supreme Court in the first place, is to find out things actually are constitutional. But, if they got elected, there's a very, very, very fine chance that they would get it passed. And speaking to that, when asked in a New York Times candidate survey whether he'd require pre-clearance for state abortion laws, Biden's campaign offered no response. He ought to be asked again. It is difficult to imagine that Biden, who has been moving steadily to the left on abortion for quite some time, and drastically so over the course of his campaign, will happily defer to his new running mate on the question, especially with her being a woman. And let's face it, again, I don't care who you are. If you are an honest person, not even an honest person with everyone else, forget that, throw that out the window. You don't have to be an honest person with everyone else. If you're an honest person to yourself, there is no way in hell that you can look at this current campaign and look at the current condition of Joe Biden today in August, mid-August, and see the man can barely function right in front of a camera. It's like he's got to keep notes. He's got to understand what's going on around him. Everything's got to be planned out. He can't have any surprises, otherwise he'll be thrown off. And even then, he still gets lost, and he gets so confused as to what's going on. There's no way this man is going to be president, not only throughout an entire term. I honestly, I would have to say the over-under maximum is probably 6 months. And again, like the other night when I showed you that thing from CNN, they talked about that Joe Biden was saying that, Kamala Harris was a good running mate because she'd be ready with her resume and her ability. She'd be ready to step right in if and when Joe decides to step aside. You would never hear someone running for office talking in those type of terms ever, or their people or anyone else referring to him or to a president. You would never vote for someone expecting them to step aside 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, ever. Sure, something might happen. They might get assassinated. They might get sick. Who knows? But to step aside, no, that would never be the intention. But in this campaign, it is. Because let's face it, creepy Uncle Joe is not doing well. Yeah, so there's that. I also want to leave you with one other little jewel I found. It's actually kind of an interesting one. It is involving Kamala Harris. And I think I talked about this the other night. I was going to show it to you, and I'm 99% sure I didn't. So if I did, I apologize. But I'm pretty sure that I did not show this to you. And it's only, how long is it? A minute and 50 seconds long. And it was from a town hall. It's when Kamala Harris was a presidential candidate, and she was answering questions, and one of them was a question from a lawyer in the audience. I love when they answer these questions at a town hall, because they know what questions are coming. These questions are usually fed to the audience, or if they do want to ask their own question, the question has to be written down and submitted, and then it's got to be taken back and approved by the campaign. And then if they get the green light, they have to read it. That's why they're always looking down on a piece of paper, because these people know I have to read this question, even if it's my own question. Craziness, right? And something else that most people don't realize, Kamala Harris dropped out way early in this campaign. And when she did, do you know what her approval rate was? 2%. And now everyone wants her to be president? Crazy, huh? But anyways, like I said, let me just play this right quick, and then we will be done for the night. All right, pull it up. Okay, again, this was from a town hall, I think on CNN. Yeah, CNN.
Certain countries have changed their dietary guidelines to reduce the consumption of red meat in light of the impact of the climate change.
Yeah.
If elected, will you be supporting change in dietary guidelines? And then how will you plan on implementing the changes so that people effectively change their diets?
Yeah, I mean, and thank you, Carol, for your work and the question. I think of the point that you're raising in a broader context, which is that as a nation, we actually have to have a real priority at the highest level of government around what we eat and in terms of healthy eating, because we have a problem in America. And we can talk about all that we are now, the subject of this conversation. We can talk about the amount of sugar in everything. We could talk about soda. We could go on and on. So the answer is yes. But I'll also say this: the balance that we have to strike here, frankly, is about what government can and should do around creating incentives and then banning certain behaviors. I mean, just to be very honest with you, I love cheeseburgers from time to time, right? I mean, I just do. And I think that, but there has to be also what we do in terms of creating incentives that we will eat in a healthy way, that we will encourage moderation, and that we will be educated about the effect of our eating habits on our environment. And we have to do a much better job of that, and the government has to do a much better job of that.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, you love cheeseburgers. I mean, we all do. I don't know whether
from time to
try
time,
the Beyond Burger, the Impossible
yes.
Burger, right? They try, but it's not quite the same. That's my personal opinion. But would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
The food pyramid. What people
yes.
to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes, I would. And
Okay, so there you have it. That was, to me, very disturbing. Now, it was subtle. I don't know if you caught it, but she talked about, dietary guidelines. Well, fine. They can have dietary guidelines. I have no problem if they want to get some experts in a room and say what we should eat. And I'm not going to listen to it because they're a bunch of morons and they're usually being paid off by somebody. And if you don't think so, you've got your homework to do. But besides that, she threw in a word there and she mentioned banning. Does this remind you of, I don't know, what they did in New York when they decided they banned certain sizes of soda that you were no longer allowed to purchase? Remember? Told you what you could and couldn't do. Remember how that worked out? At least people back then were brave enough and angry enough to stand up against it. But if she gets as president, she starts slipping this stuff in, they start banning things. Think people are going to stand up or think people are going to get behind it? Now, again, I understand people need to eat healthier. That part I don't disagree with. But it's not the government's job to tell you what to eat, what you can eat, what you can't eat, and how much of it. It's up to you. You're the individual. It's your liberty. Anyways, it's been fun, guys, and it's been a great week. So I hope everyone's enjoying this, and I will be back Monday, a couple days. But don't forget, tomorrow is the Libertarian Hour at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's a 1-hour show where we talk about libertarian issues. And right now we're doing a wonderful little series called Myths and Misunderstandings within the Libertarian Party. And tomorrow we're going to be talking about healthcare. You won't want to miss it. So see you guys later. Have a good one.